In theaters now from Marvel is the latest Captain America film, Captain America Brave New World. This time we have Anthony Mackie as Captain America, taking over from Steve Rogers, who had done it for decades, really. He's the Anthony Mackie character is Sam Wilson. I have to look over here because I watch these Marvel movies. I enjoy these Marvel movies, but I don't watch them twice. And there's really, if you may be well aware, really a large amount of Marvel content out there these days. So I read a lot of Marvel comics as a kid. I watched the movies. I'm trying to watch some of the TV series, but it's just really, at some point, it almost feels like homework. So forgive Marvel fans, please forgive any inaccuracies or my eyes darting over here to look at a list of the character and actor names. So what we have here is Anthony Mackie in his first starring role as Captain America in his own feature film. He is Sam Wilson, who was previously what was he called? He was the Falcon. He was the Falcon up to this point, which was a character I never really cared for. I always thought it was kind of silly, and they didn't really do much with him until the Disney Plus series came along, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which was really good. And you get elements from that series in this film that we're talking about, which that film being Captain America Brave New World. You get the character of Isaiah Bradley, portrayed by Carl Lumley, who was really good. He's really good in this, and he was really interesting character in that Falcon and the Winter Soldier TV series. I'm giving you homework here if you haven't watched it. His character makes sense as to who he is. They very casually mention who he is in this film, but it means a lot more if you've watched that Disney Plus TV series. He is a person who was a soldier. He was the forgotten Cap, as they say, a super soldier that the government had trained to do something like Captain America was doing, but he was imprisoned, and I honestly don't even remember the whole story. They get into it a little bit in this movie, but if you watch Captain America Brave New World and you're like, who's that older guy? What's his deal? Watch the Disney Plus series, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and it'll explain a lot of that. So, again, the Sam Wilson character, Anthony Mackie's cool. He's good. He's good in this, but I never found his character that interesting until that Disney Plus series came along, and now he is given the upfront and center role, and he's really cool. It's an interesting, different take on Captain America, and I think the mainstream is used to. The mainstream kind of knows what these movies told them and what was on the comic covers and all that. The truth behind all this in terms of the comic world, which is, by the way, the source material for all these Marvel films, is that a lot of these characters change over the course of decades and decades. In the comic books, you have different characters taking on the role of Green Lantern or Captain America or even Batman at times. The movie-going public doesn't know that, so a film like this might be a slightly harder sell, but this is a fun action movie. It really is more of an action political thriller than it is a superhero movie. I mean, it's a superhero movie in that, yes, you have large, crazy beings showing up and wreaking havoc and devastation. You have people with superhuman abilities. But at its core, it's really, what's the story of this film? The story basically, and I'm like super anti-spoiler, so I'm going to tell you less than the trailers did. And yes, there's another Marvel character that's in this that is a really big surprise if you watch the movie as it goes. So I'm not going to mention what that character is, even though there's no way you can go to the theater and see this and not have that revealed to you on the marketing. The basic story is that Captain America is being enlisted by the president, who is portrayed by Harrison Ford. He's taking over for William Hurt in the role of Thaddeus Ross, Thunderbolt Ross, the person who was like the Hulk hunter in the comics. He is now the president of the United States, and he needs a little help. He wants Captain America to put the Avengers back together again to deal with threats, foreign and domestic. Cap's a little reluctant to be on the side of a president. They always sort of operated independent of the government. So there's that kind of struggle. And then suddenly there's an assassination attempt. This is about as much of the story as I'm going to give you. There's an assassination attempt on the president, done by people who seemingly are remote controlled, shall we say. So this is a race against time to find out who's going to do this, who's behind all this before they actually do kill the president or cause horrific world events. And it's Captain America and his new Falcon, who is Danny Ramirez, he's Joaquin Torres. I don't know some of these people. Joaquin Torres, performed by Danny Ramirez. They're the team. They're the Rock'em Sock'em Winged Avengers, somewhat literally. Captain America has wings. It's sort of his costume and his abilities have grown out of the Falcon character. So I always thought the Falcon character was a little silly. This guy with these mechanical wings, it doesn't really jive with the rest of it for me. It seems a little goofy. In this movie, it's really cool. The way the wings are utilized in the combat sequences and the aerial flight sequences and the hand-to-hand foo sequences. The stunt work in this movie is really good. The action in this movie is really good. And I always want to call it martial arts, but the fisticuffs choreography is really cool in this movie. And for the most part, you actually can see what's going on, which a lot of Hollywood has forgotten how to do. So action in this movie is really fun. There really aren't, the way I would describe this film for Marvel people, a lot of people are saying, it's lesser Marvel, good, not great. I guess I would say all of that. I mean, the glory years of the Marvel movies are always going to be what we had up to Avengers Endgame. Maybe we will get back to that again now, but this kind of feels like placekeeper movies. Sometimes these kind of in shows kind of feel like we're doing this to retain the rights kind of thing, like the Fantastic Four that Roger Corman made. But it was a fun movie. It was a fun big screen movie. I saw it in a Dolby theater, so the visuals and the sound were really impressive. But there are no stand up and cheer moments. There are no really memorable lines in this movie. It's nothing I think I ever need to see again, but it was entertaining while I watched it. Now, yes, toward the end of the film, there's a character that is marketed as being in this film, and you watch the movie and you start looking at your watch going, is this like just right at the end? Yes, it is kind of right at the end. When it happens, it is very fun, it is very well done, it is very well rendered, but it is really predominantly not about that thing that they put front and center in all the marketing. The way I thought about this movie is this. Say you're a Ramones fan. I am, so I will. I'm a Ramones fan. Do I have all of their albums? Yes. Do I listen to all of their albums? Yes. When I reach for the albums that I like the most, am I going to reach for those later albums? Probably not. When I think of the Ramones songs, if you asked me to name 20 Ramones songs right now, they would total 20 minutes in duration if you were going to listen to all of them. If I were to name 20 Ramones songs right now, would I name anything from the last 4 or 5 albums? Probably not. But if I listen to those last 4 or 5 albums, they sound like the Ramones, and they give me what I want out of a Ramones album. They just might not be the best Ramones album. I would say the same for AC/DC. Love AC/DC, but when I say name an AC/DC song, you're probably not going to name something off the last couple albums. That's just the way it is. That's kind of how I feel about Marvel right now, at least, is that they're giving you the Marvel brand, they're giving you the Marvel feel. It just might not be the best Marvel that they have given you. So, interesting in this movie, we also have Shira Haas as a character that is kind of what I was saying after we walked out of the movie is you kind of have discount Captain America, you kind of have discount Black Widow, you kind of have discount this and discount that. Not that there's anything wrong with any of these people. It's just like it's trying to emulate like the glory period of these films, which hopefully are not behind us. I'm not going to talk about who the villain is. The villain is a Marvel character. The villain is portrayed by Tim Blake Nelson, who's a good actor, but I felt was that character and how it was revealed and shown was some things look cool on the comic page as artwork, and sometimes when you put those into live action, they just look a little silly. That's kind of how I felt like his character looked in this film. From friends I have been talking with who know the Marvel world really well, they felt like he was a little bit underutilized for who the character is. But it's interesting, and at least it's not the same at characters we've seen 100 times as villains. That's the beef I have with the DC stuff, is that, and some of the Marvel stuff too, is that, okay, cool, there's a new Superman movie coming out. I haven't really loved a Superman movie since Christopher Reeve stopped doing it, but they're going to keep making them. And what do you know? The villain is Lex Luthor. It's like, oh, there's a Batman movie. Who's the villain? Of course, it's the Joker. There are more villains than that, but they go with the most recognized and commercial ones. I love that this Marvel series is not just relying on the same villains all the time. That's very cool. And this movie ultimately was fun. It's just probably not going to be wildly memorable. So that is all I have to say about that. Your mileage may vary. You've already probably seen it. I just thought I would share my opinion. Captain America: Brave New World, fun action movie.